Yunda asks, what does it mean to be first or last in heaven? Jesus says that whoever wishes to be great among you shall be your servant. Whoever wishes to be first among you shall be last. Matthew 20:26-27. Does this mean that there are servants in heaven, perhaps a ranking system in heaven, or is Jesus saying, serve on earth, be first in heaven?
Love that question.
Yeah, and that's
just want to say hi to Lucas before you go.
Yes,
hi Lucas. Thanks for joining us.
And hi Diana as well. Again, happy Sabbath and Merry Christmas to you as well. Thank you so much for your comments. We appreciate that. Our wonderful family here on Facebook and on YouTube. So we thank you so much for joining us at Bible Ask Live. Getting back to the question. That's a very great question. I love, when you think about how, the meaning of what Jesus said, because it can be very, very deep. And so let's go there to Matthew chapter 20 and 26 and 27. So basically where it says, yet it shall, I'm in the wrong chapter. My bad. Sorry about that. Is it Matthew 20, 26? Because I'm in Matthew 20, 26. Yes. Yet it shall not be so among you, but whoever desires to become great among you, let him be your servant. And whoever desires to be first among you, let him be your slave. So when you're looking here, it's very easy to be, confused and saying like, are there slaves in heaven? If I go to heaven, will I be a slave because I was great on earth, or will somebody else be my slave when I'm in heaven? And the word here for slave or servant isn't the same word that you see used in American English today. So basically, this would be more along the lines of like just being great in the kingdom of heaven, just like that you would be in a high position if you were humble here on earth. That's, I think, more the gist of what is being said by Jesus. I was also just, I used to think about that because it also depends on which version of the Bible that you're reading. Because like when I read, I'm trying to remember the other verse off the top of my head, but it says who would be first in heaven will be, who's last on earth will be first in heaven. Does that mean like, there's first, second, third, last? No, not necessarily. I don't think that there's like a ranking system of who, who's the best in heaven. I think it's more that how much you're recognized for what you did for the Lord when you're here on earth. If you were on earth, just serving, I think God will give you a great reward. I think he'll give you certain blessings that maybe other people who didn't do as much wouldn't see. But I think heaven is going to be so wonderful. I don't think you're going to really mind maybe not having as much of an honor when you get to heaven. Jay or Wendy, really quick, do you have any other thoughts on that before I keep going?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is like a huge topic to me. I mean, if you look at who has stooped the lowest of anybody, and that will be Christ. I mean, it is he who descended. He who descended. Like if you read Philippians 2, he talks about him, how he, did not consider his godship or being equal to God something to cling to, but he gave that up, became a human being. So he gave up being in heaven, gave up being God, gave up being, in such a wonderful place surrounded by armies of angels and commanding them to become not just a human being, but then also a servant among human beings. And, it talked about how, foxes have dens, wolves have holes, but I have nowhere to, lay my head. He had nothing. He was basically homeless. He, from the day he was born, his life was in peril. He had to go spend time in Egypt. I mean, you just name it. Like he had all these strikes against him and he pulled through. He did it all. Why? Why did he give it all up? Why did he even suffer on the cross? Why did he die? So that we could be with him again. And, but because he did that, we're told this is why Christ is more glorified. This is why the Father exalts him, because of what Christ gave up, because of how he humbled himself. So he's the ultimate example. Like God leads by example. God always follows his law, And so when it comes to humbleness, nobody has been humbled more than God himself. And we contrast this now. Who's going to be the lowest of all in heaven, or in the eyes of heaven? It's going to be he who wants to be like the Most High, who wants to be like God, who, wants to have the throne of God, and that's Satan. And, he's all about exalting himself and glorifying himself and serving himself. And like, it's that attitude that's completely contrary to what the Bible teaches and calls for. And, and so when we look at what's real Christianity and what's false Christianity, if you go back in time, one of the most true signs of whether someone's actually a true Christian or not is, are they actually humble? Do they actually live in a way that shows they don't exalt themselves? Or do they expect you to exalt them? Do they expect you to glorify them? Do they expect you to hail them? That might be a sign to be careful of that person. Or that.
Yeah. Amen. That's very, very true. And the thing is too, like when I read this verse, I always like to we always promote Blue Letter Bible because it goes back to the original language. And what's really interesting too, when you look at this verse and you look at the original Greek that was the New Testament was written in, the word here where it says servant is actually deaconess, which is where we get the word deacon. And it just means somebody who ministers. So just somebody who's a giving, caring person. It doesn't mean that in heaven you're going to be a slave, or here on earth you need to be a slave, like you have a master and you're beaten. It's not that way. It just means somebody who's minister, somebody who cares and helps other people in a giving and caring way. And so that's an attribute that God is trying, or Jesus is trying to say, like, that's an attribute of somebody who belongs in heaven, is that you're a person who loves to give, to care, and for the needs of other people. Like when Jesus washed his disciples' feet, he was being a servant in a sense, because he was ministering to their need of cleaning their feet. And so Jesus, again, is, like you're saying, the ultimate example of what it means to be worthy of exaltation in heaven, because that's where true greatness is in the love and giving character of God that we see there.
And really, our church leaders should be the greatest servants of all. And there's some that do that, right? I mean, the best pastors are the ones who just sit back and enable their people. Like that's really the way the biblical model is. Yeah.
Amen.